How's it going, guys? Kyle here with 4 Ranch, and today I'm just going to kind of walk you through my logic and my mentality on when I am rigging something together purpose-driven to be used at night or with night vision. So just wanted to kind of walk you through that. Nothing very formal here. Definitely speaking candidly, I don't read off a script ever for any of my videos. I'm sure you guys can tell that already with some of my rambling, but nonetheless, we're just going to be talking about how I have things rigged. If you're not aware, I do a lot of reviews relating to lasers and night vision and thermal and all that kind of stuff. Not often do I actually cover how I'm rigging things together, and there's been enough requests for me to do this video that I thought I'd just kind of let you see what I'm running and how I'm running, and more importantly, the logic behind it. So this may give you some ideas on how to improve your setup. This may give you reasons to roast me in the comments and tell me why I'm stupid for running things that I'm running. Nonetheless, this is my actual gear and how I'm currently running it. Before I get any further though, I do want to give a shout out to Optics Planet. If you're not aware, discount code 4MRR will save you at least 7% off. I think the record has been 12%, so it varies depending on their promotions. I don't get a kickback from that, guys. You just save money, and we're talking about some expensive things. If you think shooting during the daytime is expensive, well, when the lights go out, for whatever reason, there is just a night vision tax, it seems, on all that kind of gear. So save yourself some coin using that code. And another shout out to Warhammer Armaments. They are another channel sponsor, and they are actually experts in the field of night vision. So if you are someone who feels overwhelmed by all the options out there, I suggest you just give them a call. They will talk to you as a human being and not just another number they want to push through the system in terms of getting a night vision sale. They will actually speak to you potentially for hours, making sure you understand what it is you're getting into, making sure that your needs are actually met and not necessarily over exceeded in terms of spending money on diminishing returns depending on where you plan on running night vision and how you plan on running it. And last but definitely not least is the 4 Ranch Patreon supporters. Guys, if it wasn't for you, I would probably be limited to a video every other month because YouTube does not cover the ammo bill. So you are personally making sure that I can continue shooting these guns, reviewing things, putting them through their paces. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, as a thank you, and if you're not aware, I'm giving something away the first of the month every month on the 4 Ranch Patreon page. And as of earlier today, I got word that I will be able to do another night vision device giveaway. So we're looking at some duals, and we're probably going to give away a Holosun Iris near term as well. So make sure you are signed up for that if you want to support the channel and try to benefit from getting some nice toys as well. Okay, so just breaking things up in as logical of categories as I can think, I'm going to talk about just PCCs in general. So my mentality on this is that a 4-in-1 device, and there's many of them out there. This is the LaserSpeed M6TR. This is their VCSEL one that does have a white light head on the illuminator. So I have it in dual visible spectrum, essentially, where I get a white light and green laser. The reason I think that these are awesome for a small platform like this MP5K here, this is a Warhammer Armaments MP5K, so if you saw Grand Thumb's video with the super safety and it doing crazy stuff, this is one of those from Warhammer Armaments. They are slammed because of that video, but I have my own video coming out, and that's why I'm rigging it up the way I like it. Circling back though, I want this to be small, as light as possible, as compact as possible. So the 4-in-1 units, first of all, serve that purpose because I don't have an extra white light on here. It's not a super big bulky laser. It's reasonably compact and fits reasonably well on this platform. The white lights on the 4-in-1 units are usually not nearly as good as a dedicated, like a mod light or a Surefire light body, obviously, right? So this is powered by a single CR123. It does 4 things, so it's kind of jack of all trades, master of none. That being said, for a PCC, this white light is going to illuminate the engagement ranges that I would likely use a pistol caliber cartridge. So for me, this kind of fits the bill because it keeps things streamlined, simple, and the illumination is good enough for the intended purpose of something like a freaking 4-inch 9mm, right? So it works for me. So just some food for thought there. That's why I like to throw these on my PCCs. Now this one in particular does it all because it also has a Villain Weapon Systems diffuser. So the IR illuminator on this can go into a fairly refined illumination cone, but I can also greatly widen that cone of illumination by just flipping that over. And once again, it will flood the entire room. So for, you know, if you're doing that LARPing inside of close quarters, well, now you are absolutely covered because I will illuminate the whole room when I'm doing my little make-believe room clearing. So the M6TR is a, you know, I call it budget because it's $1,000, and like I said, there's the night vision tax that gets very expensive. There are some ultra budget ones, so the SMS Laser HFXC is one worth mentioning. This thing is great in pretty much every category except for, you know, ruggedness. First of all, the divergence and convergence dial on the side is not water sealed, so you can't, you know, if you want to pretend like you're a Navy SEAL or whatever, you can't go diving with this. And if it rains really heavy, you're probably gonna get moisture in here. When moisture gets inside of lasers, the condensation gets on the back of the lens, and then it's a very diffuse laser and essentially unusable. Usually you can't get that out. It is what it is. The other thing is that I didn't have the best results in terms of holding zero, although it was mostly acceptable for a $300 unit. So there are other options if you don't want to drop $1,000, but you do kind of get what you pay for to an extent. Another 4-in-1 unit worth mentioning is the Roviva line. So this is their GL5 Pro. It's essentially a GL4 Pro, just different body. Battery orientation is perpendicular rather than parallel to the recoil impulse. So that's an improvement there. I think it looks slightly better. This one could be simple enough that you wouldn't have to run a tape switch, although these are compatible with tape switches. When you're holding this, it's as simple as just a thumb flicking up and down, even on the Scorpion, which ergonomics get a little challenging on this guy, but it would work as well. And it's not adding a ton of weight or bulk, and the height is low enough that I can actually see right over it with this Holosun Ames without it obstructing any of my view out of that optic. Okay, so working our way up in size, one thing I realized I didn't mention, if you are running night vision, the first rifle accessory you should probably get is going to be a can. If you are running unsuppressed under night vision, it's just not really ideal. First of all, it's nighttime, so if you got neighbors, they're probably not going to be the biggest fan of you if you're making a ton of noise at night. You know, all that noise pollution doesn't really help you, and you're not being stealthy at all, so hunting purposes, not helping you. Flash signature, also not helping you. So your night vision is probably going to auto-grade every time you have a big fireball in front of you, especially if you're shooting a shorter barreled platform like this. So you're going to limit the information you're actually seeing visually because of that muzzle flash as well. So should have mentioned that up front. All the guns I shoot at night are suppressed for those reasons. But here's a 12.5. So this is a Santan Tactical. I like this gun. And it is running the Holosun Iris right now. Similar to the M6TR, I do have the Villain Weapon Systems diffuser. It's just going to make this more modular in terms of if I need flood to illuminate an entire area up close. But since the Iris is a 3-in-1 unit, I do have to supplement this platform with a standalone white light. Now, when I rig things for night vision, I try to stay ergonomic as much as possible, because when you're under nods, if you're not an experienced nods user, you focus what you're seeing to essentially infinity to, it's not gonna be the foreground, it's gonna be things in the background, right? So it's kind of like a camera lens that's manually focused. Everything in the foreground is gonna be blurry. So when you're holding your rifle, it's blurry. You kind of have to feel for things you need to make the indexing obvious. So the Iris, I currently am not running a remote switch to. My logic behind that is that essentially all my IR controls are here. It's very obvious. I can feel that this is the Iris. It has its own ergonomic fire button on top, and the slider is the big draw to the Iris to control that illumination pattern. So with that logic, my thumb is already going to be on it quite often. It's as simple as just hitting that fire button. Now for the white light, I am right-handed, so most of the time I'm shooting to where my thumb can activate the Holosun Raid here on the left. However, if I'm shooting off-handed, well, then I can't really get to it so well. So I need a remote switch to keep things ergonomic. So I try to keep it ambidextrous as much as possible. Also, under night vision, it's very obvious that I can tell that this button is white light, this button is IR, right? Because there's, you can feel that very obviously. I bring that up because negligent discharge of white light happens. If stealth matters, it's definitely not ideal to be activating your white light. It could ruin a hunt. If you're a hog hunter, and it's as simple as that, you accidentally hit the white light when you think it's IR, well, they're probably going to run, and you better start shooting and be a good shot because you just told them that you're coming. Now, another thing that I want to cover briefly, you'll notice that I have this Vortex UH1 on a Unity riser. So these things are becoming very popular, and I've noticed people that don't run night vision are even starting to use risers. Now, there is some merit that it may make a slightly more comfortable head position. You're not as scrunched down. So that, that does have a value there. When you're running night vision, so when you have those binos or a PVS 14 on your face, having this slightly elevated does make a big difference. It's going to reduce the frequency in which you bump your nods into your rear sight, charging handle, or just receiver in general, because you're not trying to get so low that your nods are just right above that rail. It's going to keep it elevated, and it's just going to make it a more comfortable shooting experience. It's to make it easier to just bring the gun up in front of you. So I do believe that the Unity risers, or risers in general, getting that higher height over bore height for the purpose of night vision is absolutely worth it. If you're not running night vision, it may not be so worth it. You're increasing that height over bore, you're adding weight, you're adding complexity, one more set of hardware that could back out over time. So just something to consider there. But for nods, I highly recommend using a riser of sorts. Okay, so the Hollow Sun Iris is ergonomic such that the fire button is easy to get to with your thumb. The Handgun is a little less ergonomic because that fire button is at the front. So way to go L3 for that. So it's harder. I could C-clamp this whole handguard, and I still technically could get to that. I don't have a hand stop currently on the front. I would, if this is how you're gonna do it, I would recommend a hand stop there, because again, this is gonna be blurry, so if you go too far, you grab that can, it's gonna be a bad night. So what I then do is have a remote switch that will both control the IR device as well as the white light. Same logic as before. I want it to be ambidextrous, so if I grab it primary hand or if I go offhand, I can still run it, but it's not as practical for me to get to that fire button. For what it's worth, I'm not like the biggest fan of Handguns. They are good, they have their place. I don't like the tiny little set screws, because when you're using night vision or you're doing stuff in the dark and you just want to align it with your optic, a tiny tool like that is a pain in the butt in the dark. So I'll get off my soapbox there. But when I'm running an Handgun, I do have to use a switch. So this is a Unity Axon. This one is a sync version, which means when I hit the white light, that both the white light and the Handgun laser do activate, assuming the Handgun is on, which is cool. And you probably can't see that because it's bright, but yeah, so there you go. So that makes it very simple. Similar to the other setup on the Axon, since that white light is not only a different shape, it's also elevated, I can differentiate that under night vision in terms of which button I'm hitting. The laser only is flat, whereas the sync button, if I want white light, is there. However, there's still risk of hitting that white light. So if I know for a fact I don't need that white light, that's where the 100 Concepts light caps actually do have some pretty good merit. So I just cover it. Then if I do accidentally bump it, so I'm actually activating it right now, still on that visible sync right now, the white light is on. But you can't see anything, nothing escapes from that 100 Concepts light cap. So very useful. If you're doing a night vision class, hunting, whatever, and you don't want to be the guy with the white light that turns on, just invest the $12 or whatever that these 100 Concepts light caps go for. So both of those other rifles, although mid-length roughly, had enough handguard space that I could put everything where it's comfortable. This is kind of what I've rigged for a situation where I don't necessarily have all the handguard space in the world. So this is a 10.5. It has a D-ball D2 on it. I have a Surefire dual switch on the front because that is where it's comfortable to index. That's where my thumb wants to go. Again, it's a shorter handguard, right? So when I extend out, that's where my thumb goes. That being said, the ideal position is mounting a laser at the 12 o'clock all the way forward to minimize shadowing and make it comfortable. The D-ball D2 does have a fire button in the back, so if I mount it here, it is almost perfect where my thumb on this foregrip will line up nicely, but if I have to shoot offhand, there's not a top fire button on the D-Ball D2. So you are kind of shit out of luck if you do have to fire offhand. So that's why I'm running the switch. But if I mount the laser behind my hand, then you're gonna get a lot of reflected light off of your hand and cause shadowing, so neither of which are ideal. This is the Noise Fighters Cliffhang IRK. So it's their more compact, like diving board kind of rail. It's grabbing onto the receiver, so you get better reliability for one. There's a few reasons why you may want to use a mount like this, and I'll cover those briefly now that we're talking about them. First of all, some people don't like the reliability of handguards and retention of their laser zero. So different handguards have different levels of performance, but that is another degree of freedom between the receiver where your daytime optic is and where the barrel is kind of attached that can loosen, can walk over time, especially with thermal cycling. So your laser zero can drift if you bang it, whatever. The handguard is never the best place. That's why you don't want to put your scope rings on a handguard. Same principle. This is an aiming device. Handguard is not the best place to mount an aiming device. So that's perk number one of the Cliffhang IRK and similar mounting devices, is it's putting it on the upper receiver, the best place you can mount an aiming device. Now the other perk, which I kind of alluded to earlier, is when I'm activating the switches, I need to elevate this so that I'm not getting that IR light bouncing off my thumb there. So this elevation solves that problem. So that is another perk. If I were to just mount it behind my hand, it would be kind of a deal breaker there. But the third benefit on top of those first two is that center of gravity is now also on the upper receiver. So the D-Ball D2, a lot of people say, oh, it's really heavy, it ruins your shooting experience. Well, to be blunt, guys, go to the gym. You can buy all the gear in the world, but if you are not staying fit, you're kind of, in my opinion, your priorities are a little wrong. So fight me in the comments on that. But you can be as kitted out as possible. If you can't even run a mile, then your kit is probably loot for someone else. So I'll leave it at that. But this makes it a lot more comfortable to hold because that center of gravity is now more rearward. And of course, this is 2 for 1 in terms of the optic. It is functioning as a riser as well. So you do get utility out of that from that regard. So again, just some more food for thought on all the different ways you can rig these kind of platforms. Okay, so my tidbit on if you're running like an LPVO or some kind of magnified optics on your rifle and you want to have it capable for night vision, I just released a video about this build, so I go into more detail if you're curious about this one. But the 3EIR DIRV is my go-to when running magnified optics when I want to land mounted at 12 o'clock because it sits so stupid low. You don't even see it through the sight picture really on this LPVO. Even at 1x, this axon is sitting about twice as high as this laser. So that gives you some perspective there. Now you'll notice I have a red dot mounted at 12 o'clock on this because you can't really aim through scopes with night vision. Some people claim at 1x it's doable. It's not super user-friendly in my personal opinion and experience. It is far easier to mount a red dot at 12 o'clock. And again, that kind of serves as the riser because it's sitting on top of the optic. So it is very comfortable shooting from this. That being said, this scope mount is 1.5 inches. It's a 1.5 inch center line. So if you're running the 1.7 or the really high, like 1.9, and then you put the red dot, it's gonna be super goofy high. You don't necessarily wanna do that. So this is how I'm running magnified optics when I still want it to be night vision capable. Okay, but let's talk about long guns, right? Because that's kind of a different application. Now this is simulating. We're gonna use our imagination because I actually don't have a night vision clip-on device. This is an armor sight operator. It is a thermal clip-on, but it's helping us envision if this did have a night vision clip-on, how you could potentially run that as well. So this is the LaserSpeed M6TR, but this is not the VCSEL. It is the EEL version, so it gets down to a laser beam, meaning if I wanted to see something 1,000 yards away and illuminate it, this device would be great at doing that. So if this was a true Mark 12, then you'd see them with like the PEC 2s, which can do the exact same thing. They have an EEL based illuminator. So this is just doing that in a more compact package. Now similar, you want to mount it as far forward as possible so you minimize shadowing, especially with a long suppressor like this. So remote switches do become necessary. So I just have a little remote switch on the left side there. You know, if I were on a bench or something, it's that comfortable where I'm able to activate that. In terms of being able to do it from this side, same thing is true, because I can still, not as ideal as a nice button, but I can get to it. So this is one way of, you know, if you're running a night vision clip-on, you want an illuminator that can really narrow down. So depending on the range that you're looking at, that cone of vision can be nicely filled with a cone of illumination from an illuminator. So that is where full power illumination really gets important. Haven't really covered that much in this video. I don't really intend to either, because that's a whole nother can of worms for another video. But illumination is going to be really important with clip-on night vision optics, because you're looking at things further away. Your field of view is tighter. It is magnified through your daytime optic. Okay, we're once again going to use our imagination here with my 23-pound 300 PRC build. Pretend this is like a PEC 15 or an IR laser. I don't feel like taking it apart. Everything is nicely aligned right now. But if I were doing more long range nighttime shooting, then mounting to the 12 o'clock position on a diving board mount on your optic itself is also very common. And you will need a chassis for your bolt action that accepts a rail for a clip-on to obviously go in front of your daytime optic. So this is just, again, we're imagining here, because obviously I don't have these tools in the collection right now, but mounting another mounting interface for that illumination. Okay, another category is obviously handguns. So this is the Pale. It has a white light and then an IR illuminator and IR laser. When it's in IR mode, the illuminator and laser are on. It is a solid little device. It's compact. It works. So this would be an active aiming only setup, because I can only actively aim with the IR laser. So if you don't have a handgun slide that has a red dot, then you're going to be stuck using something like this. And it's still pointable, still usable, and it's honestly, shooting pistols at night is a pretty good time, because it's just simpler. There's less to it. So that is one scenario there. This is a 3-in-1 device. Again, you can use the Rovivon GL4 Pros. They are great handgun lights. That's honestly where they really excel. One thing to consider, and we'll pretend this is the X300V, so you know your light head that can rotate. Shooting pistols with red dots is a really pleasant experience, because you don't have all the risers and stuff to deal with like you do on rifles. You literally still just hold it up. It's out. You're not going to bump it on your nods, and you just index, and you just, you know, have fun shooting under nods with the handgun. So just another thing to consider. Different pistol optics like the RMR, for example, they're not great in terms of light transmission. The heavy tint on here is going to make it a little harder to see through in terms of actually seeing your target through this window, relative to like a clearer optic like the EOTech on rifles. So that is one downside to a lot of handgun optics, specifically the Trijicon RMR, but it is still overall doable. So just another thing to consider, some more food for thought for you. So if you're still around, one bit of bonus information as a thank you for tolerating all my candid rambling. This is the most effective setup if you're just getting into things. If you don't want to spend the money on a fancy laser, you know, you don't want to swing a knockoff laser. The Surefire Vampire heads give you a 2-in-1 device, so you have your IR illuminator and an IR and a white light. So that's obviously cool, because if you want to invest in a white light for your gun, which I suggest you do, have your gun set up for use without nods. I've had people talk about home defense. Well, yeah, it's all rigged for night vision. It's my home defense gun. If you don't have a white light and you think you have time to get the nods, see your IR illumination, you know, home invasions happen very fast. Watch the crazy videos on the internet if you don't believe me. So that being said, this will solve that. This is a perfectly viable home defense illumination tool, obviously. But then when you're ready for night vision, it has the IR illuminator built in, and it is a fairly capable illuminator out to about 200 yards, which is more than what most people are going to have the opportunity to shoot at under night vision anyways. To take one step further, the Bobro quick detach mount is going to be the life hack that you need if you, again, don't want to spend a lot of money. This will let you move it from setup to setup in literal seconds. So instead of spending $400 on a flashlight for every rifle that you have, you buy the extra $100 mount or whatever, and then you can quickly ratchet it off and move it from platform to platform. So just something to keep in mind. And there are also cheaper dual Surefire flashlights. So this is an older one. These things go for a couple $100 on the internet. I'll annotate the name because I'm blanking right now, but these are a little bulkier. It does have an integrated quick detach mount to also make it readily detachable and get you started in that area. All right, that was a lot. Hopefully that is useful though. Let me know, like I said, grill me for the stuff that's stupid, or let me know what you know, if that sparked any ideas or inspiration that you found useful in this video. If you are still watching, I do want to thank you for your time. And as always, have a good one.